In the spring of 1987, a radio station in northern Michigan got a phone call. The caller was not laughing. He said he had seen the creature out on a county road years before. There was a problem with that. The creature he was describing had been invented 11 days earlier by the man he was talking to. This is the story of a monster with a birth certificate, and of the people who kept seeing it anyway. Traverse City, Michigan, March of 1987. Steve Cook was a disc jockey at WTCM-FM, a local station in a town where the radio host is a familiar voice and not a distant one. April Fool's Day was coming, and he needed a prank, something to fill a morning and be forgotten by lunch. Not a hoax exactly, a joke, the kind that lasts a morning, gets a few laughs on the request line and dies there. So he built a monster, not a legend he had heard somewhere and dressed up, a monster assembled from nothing on purpose to a deadline. Half man, half dog, upright at the height of a grown man, watching from the tree line and not coming any closer. And he gave it a rule, because a monster with a rule is better radio than a monster without one. It returns every 10 years, always in a year ending in 7. A detail with no source, no record, and no reason, invented because it sounded like something a real legend would have. He recorded a song about it and credited the recording to a made-up name, Bob Farley, so that nothing in it pointed back at him. On the 1st of April, WTCM played it twice. Cook has never been vague about what he did, and that is what makes the rest of this so difficult. He has told the story the same way for decades. He made it up completely, he said, from his own imagination. He had never heard of a dogman in Michigan. Nobody had, because until that morning there was no dogman in Michigan to hear about. Then the phone started. Some callers wanted the song again. It became the most requested track on the station, which was more than the joke was ever supposed to achieve. Cook sold cassettes of it for $4 and gave the money to an animal shelter. By then the prank had a price, a product and a charity attached to it. But other callers were not asking for anything. They were not requesting the song, and they were not playing along. They were describing encounters, dates, roads, distances, the specific, boring detail that people supply when they believe what they are saying. And encounters, they said, had happened years before the song existed. Cook was the only person alive who knew the creature was fiction. He had not told the station, he had not told the listeners, and the joke only worked unexplained. And people were calling him, of all people, to report it. Within months the creature had a history, not a rumor, a history with dates attached to it and people willing to repeat them. The story went back to 1887, Wexford County, in the same stretch of northern Michigan, a full century before the broadcast. 2 lumberjacks, it was said, saw an animal with the body of a man and the head of a dog. Then more dates surfaced: 1937, the 50s, 1967. Every one of them fit the 10-year rule perfectly, not approximately, perfectly. The rule Steve Cook had written for a joke at a desk 11 days earlier. Here is what none of those older accounts had, and it is the only test that matters. A contemporary document, a newspaper from that year, a police report, anything written at the time. The 1887 sighting exists only in retellings that came after the song. Every trail you follow back from it ends in 1987, not in 1887. The legend did not survive from the past. It was fitted into it backwards by people who were not lying. That is not a lie. It is how folklore has always worked, and it is why folklore is not the same thing as evidence. A story gives people a shape. Then memory fills it honestly with whatever it already had lying around. Everyone has seen something in the dark they could not name. An animal at the edge of the headlights, gone before the shape resolved. The song did not create the sightings. It gave them a name, and a name is what turns a thing you saw into a thing you can report. 4 years later, 500 kilometers away, none of that mattered. Elkhorn, Wisconsin, Halloween night, 1991. A young woman named Doris Gibson was driving on Bray Road, an unlit rural stretch outside town. She felt the right front tire go over something, not a bump in the road, something with give to it. She stopped and got out to look, which is what people do when they think they have hit an animal. There was nothing on the road, no animal and nothing that could have been one. Then something came out of the field, running at her. She got back in and drove, and she did not stop again. Later she found a long scrape across the boot of the car, at the height of something standing behind it. She was not the only one, and that is the part that made it a story instead of an anecdote. A local reporter named Linda Godfrey was assigned the story, the way a small paper assigns whatever came in that week. She did not believe it. That is the important part. She went to the county animal control officer, expecting to end the story in one conversation. He already had a folder. It was thick. It had been there a while, filled in by other people, before anyone had asked him about it. Someone had written a single word on the tab. Werewolf. Godfrey had to fight her editors to run it, because no local paper wants that word in its own pages. The article appeared in the local paper at the end of December 1991. She spent the rest of her career on it, which is not what happens to a story a reporter thinks is nonsense. The Wisconsin cases matter for one reason. Bray Road is a different state, a different decade, and a different local culture, 500 kilometers from the transmitter. The witnesses, they were not repeating a radio song from Michigan. Most of them had never heard of it, because a station in northern Michigan does not reach southern Wisconsin. So what were they seeing? There is an explanation, and it is not a comfortable one. It is a mite. Sarcoptic scabii, small enough that you need a microscope to see what is doing this. It causes sarcoptic mange, and the animal it lands on stops moving like itself. The skin thickens and darkens. The tail loses its fur and hangs behind it like a rope. It sits back on its haunches, it rears up, and it looks wrong in a way people cannot place. This is not speculation. It is how another monster was solved. Chupacabra carcasses were collected and sent for DNA testing, which is the only way that argument was ever going to end. Everyone came back the same: coyote with mange. Sarcoptic mange can strip a wild canid almost bare. The monster was a sick animal that nobody could recognize anymore. At a dark road, headlights, 2 seconds, and adrenaline. That accounts for most of the sightings. Honestly, it does. Most is not all. Go back to the radio station in April 1987. Steve Cook had told nobody the creature was his invention. The joke only worked if people believed it, so he kept it to himself. So the callers were not confirming a story they had been told was false. They were volunteering encounters from before to the one man who knew. Sick animals explain what they saw. They do not explain the timing. That part stayed with Cook, and he has said so. He never fully took it back. He still gets reports, decades later. A man made up a monster on a Tuesday. By the weekend, it had witnesses. By the end of the year, it had a past. That is not how monsters are supposed to work. It is exactly how belief does.